and Finance Committee to order. And we have one bill to hear today, which is House Bill 594. Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Chairman. I come before you, House Bill 594. It's a simple bill. We've seen it in this committee a few times, I believe now. I'm going to name it the Brett Harold Save Georgia's Budget Act of 2021. And basically what this does is it's going to tax digital goods that we currently aren't taxing in the state of Georgia. There's 26 states out of 45, I believe, in the nation that are taxing digital goods. And while I'm not someone that wants to raise taxes, I am someone that wants to level the playing field. And we've got a situation where we're basically taxpayers are subsidizing certain companies and certain digital platforms versus helping out brick and mortar stores. So if I buy a book on my phone, I don't pay tax on that book. But if I go to Barnes and Noble, who's paying property taxes in my community, then I am paying taxes. And it's an inefficiency in tax law that we have in the state of Georgia. And I'm a firm believer that, for progress, we need to level the playing field for this because, I get it that we've taken time to do it because this industry has emerged, but it is fully here as we see it now. And it's time to start making sure that the tax collected is level across all platforms and in your community as well. And so that's why I approached Chairman Blackman about bringing this, because I think while I'm not, like I said, I'm not a big fan of raising tax revenue, and I'd love to talk about an income tax cut. I think it's important that we're taxing things at the same level. I'll be glad to take any questions on the bill. I know there's people here to talk about it, but basically at the end of the day, if I go to GameStop and my kids buy a video game, they're paying tax on that video game. But if they download it at home and play that same video game, they're not paying tax on it. And of course, this will probably get me kicked out of the house because my kids are going to be paying more for their video games, but it's the right thing to do. And I think if anything, there was a lot of fear around marketplace facilitator. And I think we saw the importance of that during the pandemic. And I think this bill, it's time that we address this issue and get past the piece of we're raising taxes. We can lower them on the other side when we get this revenue. I 110% support that, but I think we need to update our tax code into 2020 because right now we're operating in some areas in 1985.
Thank you. And as I recall, Chairman Powell, Jay Powell started talking about this, years ago. And it's taken this long to get us where we are. Members of committee, questions? Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's not a question, it's a comment. One other thing too, all these local businesses, brick and mortar, they're the ones that have to support all these cultural things that we were just talking about, trying to get a tax credit and help. When you've got a football team or anything in the rural, you run a business, a beauty contest or a food drive, they don't go to these people to get money. They go to the brick and mortar people that want you to donate.
That's exactly right. We have bookstores in downtown Dalton that, we call and ask them to support everything, but yet nobody's calling Amazon for a check.
No.
And so at the end of the day, I'm just saying, look, if I'm paying tax for a book there, I need to be paying tax online as well.
I agree with you. Thank you for bringing this bill.
Absolutely.
Other members? Oh, come on. Okay. Well, I guess we'll go to Kevin Curtin is going to tell us how much he likes Bill.
Thank you, Chairman Stevens. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Obviously, this bill got introduced yesterday, so we're kind of scrambling as to what the ramifications are. But I wanted to bring to the committee's attention some what I believe are probably unintended consequences of the way the bill is drafted. We have multiple concerns. One of them revolves around right now pre-written software that is delivered electronically has always been exempt from sales tax in Georgia. And being a telecommunications provider, we are large users of pre-written software, and it is all delivered electronically because, frankly, it doesn't even exist in hard copy anymore in these days of all virtual networks. A large portion of our capital investment is in software. So the effect of raising taxes on pre-written software on our network would make our network more expensive to build. And when you make our wired and wireless networks more expensive to build, then it's harder to reach more areas of Georgia which are hard to reach today economically. So it simply raises the cost of us building a broadband network, be it wired or wireless. So that is a concern. We understand there is an exemption in the statute on 48.8.391 for pre-written software. But if there's an exemption in another part of the code, why are we adding it back in 594? So that's the first concern. The second concern has to do with the way we read this bill. It affects and raises taxes on all streaming services. And streaming services, everything from your Netflix of the world to, we own a streaming service called HBO Max. These services are prevalent today and have really been a lifesaver for a lot of people during the pandemic. Quite frankly, getting through the pandemic with some things to watch on television as you're confined to your home. The problem we have is that this doesn't create parity. And what I mean by that is that there are three ways to deliver linear content to the end user, the consumer. One of them is via a cable or video network, a traditional cable or wired network. One of them is via satellite. We own DirecTV, so we're familiar with that. And the third one is via streaming over the internet. If this bill were to pass, only one of those three equivalent services would be subject to the sales tax. That would be the streaming services. Cable TV service is not subject to sales tax, nor is satellite service. So you're creating an unlevel playing field by taxing one of the three ways people can watch entertainment services. And by the way, it's the fastest growing element of those three. We operate in all three environments and believe there are better ways to do this via something like a communication services tax, which has been debated by this committee before in the past, which tries to level the playing field between all different kind of competing services to come up with a unified tax system. This bill does not do that. This simply picks out one of those three ways of getting your video service content and taxes it via the sales tax. So we would urge caution. We think the ramifications of this bill are wide ranging. And I think a lot of people, once they read it and understand the impact of their business, I think every business in the state of Georgia uses pre-written software delivered electronically. So I think a lot of folks don't understand this bill as written, and more people review it, I think you're going to hear more concerns from other people in the business community outside of just telecommunications. But I wanted to bring to you our concerns because we don't believe it creates a level playing field, and we urge caution on moving forward on this proposition. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I really don't understand about pre-written software that you're talking about. I do know you said there's no taxes on your cable bills, but I consider that franchise fee that I pay the city every month is pay taxes. Just under a different name.
Correct. I mean, wired cable networks are subject to franchise fees, but that is for regulation of the local right-of-way, and that's compensation going to the local government. Sales tax obviously is different. It's not only higher, 7 to 9% versus a maximum of 5% franchise fee, but also streaming services don't have any right to the right-of-way under this proposition. So they're unequal rights and unequal rates. So we don't believe it creates parity.
But we could, it's ridiculous how much they get for that for doing nothing. They're connected. The franchise fees that the cities get are not connected to a city light pole or a pole tax because it's just something they just charge you.
That's right.
And no argument for me on that. I think they're too high as well. But
But for
I would,
doing nothing.
yeah, I'd agree to lower those. We pay those as well.
I got it. Just a quick question. So when I go into Office Depot and I buy a Microsoft suite for my computer, do I pay taxes there on the Microsoft suite?
You do, and you always have, yes.
Yeah, and that's a software. So I mean, I think there's some inefficiencies in the software piece as well. And then when I go watch a movie at the movie theater, I pay sales tax. But yet somehow if I download a movie and watch it, I shouldn't pay sales tax. And then I get into your satellite fees. I mean, don't we have FCC fees? Aren't there fees taxed onto that? On our, I don't have satellite cable. I had it, but I didn't pay attention to the bill.
No.
Just a good consumer, I paid it and didn't pay attention. But so there's no tax at all on satellite. It should do that. Just whatever it is, it is. Okay, good. Thank you.
Oops. Who's number 2?
Right here.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a question to the author. serious question. Being in the mortuary business, we have to pay sales tax on caskets. So for those families that decide they want to go and order a casket offline and have it shipped to their home, how's this bill going to impact?
Well, that should have been caught in the marketplace facilitator bill.
Mhm.
They
Uh-huh.
should be paying that tax too. So if they're not, then somebody's doing something they shouldn't be doing. But they
Okay.
should be paying sales tax to keep it a level playing field for you as well. Because I think before we passed that, then they were getting you. You were
Right.
at a 7 point disadvantage. And that's
Absolutely.
what we're saying here is look, let's just, and if we look up and all of a sudden this software piece has brought in millions and millions of revenue, I'll be glad to give it back to Georgians. I mean, we sit in this room all day long and talk about tax credits for big business. I don't have a problem with it. I'm all about it. But at the same time, I want a level playing field. And I think this is what this bill tries to do.
Who's number 4? Yes, sir, Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and this really is a question for Mr. Curtin. It, I gather that he has indicated, what this bill does is we're trying to modernize a little bit with regards to our tax code. And, it speaks to fairness in a huge way. And I think Representative Carpenter has, spoke eloquently to that here today. Mr. Curtin, if you agree that needs to happen, you willing to help us in regards to the modernization of this particular product out there? As I hear you say as much.
Yes, sir. We've actually been in favor of the communication services tax proposal for about a decade to bring all the tax rates together and make them a uniform tax rate across the board for all products and services, so that there is no disparity between these different services. We've been in favor of that general approach for quite a while, but it's just never really made it across the goal line in the General Assembly.
Well, if you have any suggestions regarding, this particular piece of legislation, which, I'm a signer and a sponsor and appreciate Representative Carpenter for moving it, for bringing it. We'd certainly like to hear, what those are.
Yes, sir.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Mr. Curtin, I've got a follow-up question. And again, I haven't got my mind around this whole concept yet, so I'm certainly not prepared to vote on it today. But getting back to the content, you're talking about Netflix. So we stream Netflix or whatever, but it comes through our cable system. In Representative Carpenter's bill that you've read and studied, would my next Netflix content be taxed?
Yes, it would.
So for example, I guess my question then is, apparently then Netflix would be taxed across all the delivery channels at the same rate. Is that right?
Well, Netflix is delivered via the internet, and it depends if you use a cable network or whatever. But Netflix is generally seen as a competitor to cable television and satellite television. So those are kind of the 3 ways you can watch television: via the internet, via satellite, or via the cable network. Satellites and cable networks are not subject to the sales tax. Therefore, streaming should not be subject to the sales tax either. So that's our contention.
You know, I'm just trying to get my understanding. I'm not being argumentative or anything. I'm just trying to get a simple example. So would this bill, regardless of how you got your Netflix delivered to you, through satellite, cable, or through glass to your house, or 5G, regardless of how it got to you, would this bill tax that Netflix streaming service the same amount no matter how you got it?
It's my read of the bill.
It's-
But,
I know there's obviously other problems with the bill, but from your perspective, I'm just trying to understand.
We certainly want to, I mean, I know we want to hear from our industry partners, but if I look at this, and Representative Carpenter, maybe he can speak to this a little bit more, but, we're talking more about product and not necessarily about delivery so much. I mean, if I download a book onto my Kindle, I don't pay tax. If I run down to Gottwall's Books, a local bookstore, and I purchase that book, I do pay sales tax. And isn't that what we're really speaking to, Representative Carpenter, with this measure?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And follow up. So that's exactly what I was trying to get to. It is the product itself that I'm not purchasing anything but a Netflix movie or whatever. I just want to know, am I paying the same tax regardless for that content, regardless of how I receive that content?
May I answer? The difference I see are two things between books and things like that and music that you download. When you download a book or download music, traditionally you own those titles. You own that movie or you own that piece of music. You have permanent rights to that product. So it's just delivered to you differently. Whereas streaming services, you don't own Netflix's content. You can watch it, but you don't own it. It's a subscription. It's a service. It's not a product. One of the big problems we have with this bill is that it defines digital services or digital goods to include services. In Georgia, we typically don't tax services. So it treats a digital service differently than a traditional service. And we think that all services should be treated equally.
Yeah, and I think I understand that argument, but I'd also say, you know, when I go out and buy a beer, I drink that beer and that beer no longer exists. I have consumed that product and I pay sales tax on that beer. So if we're consuming the product of Netflix, then it's a consumption tax. And I think that's a valid argument, I think, for a consumption tax.
Well, if I go to Gottwall's Books, I can take my book back and trade it in for another book. Okay, again, paying sales tax on the difference. I mean, if I went to Blockbuster 25 years ago and I rented a movie, I had to return it, didn't I?
Yep.
I know a couple of them got lost.
But
in
you
my
pay tax.
cabinet.
You pay tax on that
So,
rental.
Those
at
are just some of
Blockbuster.
the things we, for consideration.
Yeah, sure.
And-
Very, very well.
And there's sales tax on movie, where our movie theaters aren't doing very well right now, but we do pay. We don't own that movie. We go watch a MGM movie at the local theater. We're paying sales tax on that ticket, correct?
My question's been answered. I
Okay.
was inquiring about Netflix piece, but Representative Williamson answered that. Thank you.
Chairman Newton, did you have a? You didn't pray? Okay. Who's number one? Okay, good. Number 7?
Oh, I'm sorry, I just.
Okay. Good. And since we've got Ledge Council here, I'm seeing on line 47, digital goods and services and pre-written software are taxable. Line 47?
I believe as Mr. Curtin referred to, the sale of pre-written computer software is taxable already in Georgia. There is an exemption for when the sales occur by load and leave, which load and leave, I believe it generally covers upgrades to software that companies purchase. But I believe Amy Oneacre with DOR, if she's available, could answer a little more about that. But yes, there is a tax on pre-written computer software as well as an exemption for it in certain circumstances.
Is Amy, are you on the call?
I am.
Good. Were you listening?
I was listening. Yes, sir.
Good. An opinion?
So, I mean, is the question, what is load and leave software?
Yes.
Well, we would refer to that as when there's no tangible property involved. So if a consultant comes out and loads a bunch of software on your computers or your servers, and they take any of the tangible property with them and leave with it, that would be what we would refer to as load and leave software, where they're literally, it's either electronically downloaded from the internet or somebody brings some kind of tangible property out to your facility and they load the software on your machine, but they take everything with them, all the disks and all the tangible property away.
Okay, so in general, is pre-written software taxable? Or is that too much of a general question?
Well, I think the general rule is that it's tangible personal property subject to sales tax, if not for the exemption that exists.
Got it.
And just quick follow-up. So is that the exemption, is on that load and leave?
Yes. It is. I believe actually I'm referencing the bill right now, but I believe it also, the exemption is also for digital products delivered electronically, including but not limited to software, music, video, reading materials, or ringtones. So any type of electronically delivered software is currently exempt, I believe.
Correct.
Okay, other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What is it exempt in this product and this, where are the exemptions?
This wouldn't exempt any of it. This would open it up. This is basically saying, look, if I got to go to Office Depot and buy Microsoft and pay for software tax, then I should pay for it if I download it as well.
I agree. With you. Okay. And I thought you were talking about some exemptions. I was trying to find it.
Just without this bill, it would be, it's digitally, it's exempt. Or that load and leave piece.
Other questions? Okay, well, this is a hearing only, our first hearing, so we will call adjournment to the, is there anybody else online? Okay, we'll call adjournment to the meeting and we will have later data.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.